What's going on YouTube? Hey, this is JP Miller with Career Inclusive. How are you tonight? Hey, today we're talking about the complete suite of job application materials. So I just want to go over some of the primary, secondary, and some tertiary job application material, pieces of the job application materials that we use to help attract recruiters to your candidacy. So the first one, you're all going to know this, we talked about it quite a bit, is the resume, right? So your resume, of course, is very important. It's how recruiters get to know you. It's how you are known in 6 seconds or less or thereabouts. So your resume needs to be really spot on, very targeted, very quickly show exactly who you are, what your brand is, and identify either through the summary statement or more ideally through actual bullet points that prove your experience of how you have performed in the past and what it is exactly you do. You want a real clear targeted approach. Think of like the spear, and you're a spear point, you're at the very tip of the spear, exactly what you're doing. That's what the resume is. The second, we could argue maybe first most important thing, maybe more important than a resume, is the LinkedIn profile. If you're not on LinkedIn, you're really hurting your opportunities for finding work. You're limiting yourself. The LinkedIn profile can be very powerful. A well-branded LinkedIn profile can make the difference in recruiters finding you and inviting you to apply to their company and inviting you to have conversations with them. And or uh, contrary to that, be the difference of being ignored or being targeted for inaccurate types of roles that you're not as interested in. In fact, I was recently speaking with a professional about midway through his career, and he said that he's more executive level, he's more management with uh, the technical background, but because of his LinkedIn profile, he's being targeted for software engineering roles. But he's more interested in a management role with some technical aspects to the job, right? And so that's because he has an inconsistency in the LinkedIn branding. The branding that he's showing the world on his LinkedIn profile is saying, hey, I'm a software engineer. You have software that needs to be manufactured. I can do that for you. But in reality, that's not who he is anymore. So a LinkedIn profile that isn't up to date is really hurting him. So let's get into the LinkedIn profile a bit. We're going to kind of like skip over the resume because I've done several posts on that, and we don't need to talk about that ad nauseum today. So I've got my LinkedIn profile here, and you can see that I'm a curriculum developer and programs lead. Like that's really laid out very clearly on my LinkedIn profile. So if you came to see my LinkedIn profile, you probably wouldn't say like career coach, and there are reasons for that. For the time being, you see more curriculum developer, programs lead. You say, oh, maybe he's a curriculum developer. Huh, that's not too far of a jump, right? Maybe he's a curriculum manager, right? If I want to be known as something like a head of education, well, then I need to brand myself differently. If I want to be known by everyone in my contacts on my LinkedIn profile as a career coach, then I need to brand myself appropriately for that, right? And like I said, there are reasons, but that is coming in the near future. But for now, this is what it is. And then the about section really focuses on what I do for companies, what I do as a professional. It's not so much about me, but it's what I can do for you, right, as an employer. Okay, and then we've got some featured links. For example, this goes to my Medium article or my Medium profile and some activity. Being involved in LinkedIn can be very strong because LinkedIn is it's a very social site. Um, so be involved in your network, yeah. And then some of my work, my past work, and certificates, and more certificates, and some volunteer experience. And so this is a complete profile, right? Skills. Um, these skills are okay for now. They could probably be updated. They could probably use some updating. And then more than 80 recommendations that I've been able to accumulate over the past several years, which is absolutely just mind-boggling. Some courses, I feel like you keep your courses about 10 to 12. A few projects, no more than 7 projects, I say, probably like 4 or 5 is probably a sweet point. Here again, my projects could probably use some updating. Oh, excuse me. My projects could use some updating, a couple organizations, and then my interests. And I'm a member of a couple groups as well. So that's kind of like LinkedIn profile very quickly as a nutshell. We'll have future broadcast where we talk about the LinkedIn profile in more detail. So that's about all I'm going to give you right now, since we're talking about the whole suite and we're not focusing on individual points. But I will be making a video in the very near future here where we really dive into the LinkedIn profile and how you can use that to brand yourself. But I think the most important thing here is going all the way to the top is, what are you known as in your headline? Do you have a photograph of yourself? This is very important because LinkedIn is a social profile. Employers want to see what you look like, want to know that you're professional. And as you can see, there's some discongruency here between the two photos. Yeah, that could stand to be updated. But this is a professional photograph, and I don't have one such with my current look. And until I get that, this is going to be the photo that I present to the world. And then when they see me, hey, I'm rocking the Rona haircut. I'm rocking the Rona style. And that's just, it is what it is for now. All right. Well, let's get away from LinkedIn and let's go to GitHub. And before we really get into GitHub, let me get into the other one, is the cover letter. Cover letter is, I say, like if we're going to talk about primary job application materials, there's 3, maybe 4. And that would be your resume, your LinkedIn profile, and cover letter to round out the 3. And if we're going to add a 4th, we say your personal online portfolio, especially for my STEM professionals out there, right? So before we talk about GitHub, your cover letter will be a 5-paragraph letter, maybe 4 or 5 paragraphs. First paragraph is an introduction that introduces exactly what you can do for the employer, how you're aligned, how your values and your skills align with the needs of the company. And it's not about you, it's about what you can do for others. Look up Jack Welch's quote and what he said about it, how it's service and service to others. Okay, so how you can serve the company in question and how you align with the company in question. And then you have 2 to 3 example paragraphs that show proof of your ability. So you make the assertion at the top, and then you have proof of those assertions. And the conclusion, basically, it tells the reader exactly what you just told them, or not exactly, but summarizes very quickly and makes that call to action. So you reassert one final time how you can help them, in slightly different language, and then make that call to action. Include your phone number, email address. Tell them, hey, I'm looking forward to talking to you. Let's get in a meeting soon. Having those three things that are very strong will get you, like I'd say, like 80% of the way there. Okay, and so at this point now we're starting to talk about the 20%. They can make the difference, especially in a tight race, right? So get into the secondary branch of job application materials. Say GitHub profile. So I've got your GitHub up here. There's our OctoKitty. GitHub is, most of you probably know this, GitHub is a place where the open source lives. Open source lives here. GitHub, GitLab is a competitor that's very similar. GitHub, of course, is owned by Microsoft these days. Used to be its own company. GitHub was really interesting when it was a startup. At one point, they said that everyone had to agree to hire a new hire. Everyone in the company agreed to hire a new hire before that new hire was brought on. Which is really fascinating. And they're talking about like a company of 100 plus people at that point. So very interesting philosophy on how they worked and how they hired. Obviously, it worked for GitHub. It's sold to Microsoft for I don't know how much, so I'm not even going to guess. I'm sorry about that. I need to start recording these videos earlier, maybe like in the mornings. Start doing this, which means, of course, getting up a bit earlier than I had been. So that's GitHub. GitHub can be used to show proof of your coding abilities. It can be a great place to prove experience by getting involved in open source projects, putting yourself out there and contributing to open source teams. Really good experience making pull requests and doing things that you would do on the job at a company that uses GitHub. All right, next company, Kaggle. For my data scientists, data analysts, business analysts out there, you want to show off your data skills. Kaggle may be more appropriate. And for these secondaries, like the GitHub, the Kaggle, you don't have to have all of these, right? You don't have to keep an immaculate GitHub and a GitLab and a Kaggle. That's a bit much. That's ridiculous, especially if you have a family and other responsibilities. It's a lot. It's a lot to juggle, right? So pick one and do it really well. Like make that your baby and do it better than anyone else. Okay, and then, so that's what your Kaggle will be for data people and want to get into data. And of course, Kaggle runs competitions. You can win money. So there's that added advantage, right? Okay, next level would be, this is the Tableau, I believe. No, 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 the other one's Tableau. Which one am I on? I'm on GitLab. Yeah, so this is the GitLab. I'm not very familiar with GitLab personally. I believe I have a GitLab profile that I created a while ago, a long time ago. It's not active. But GitLab or GitHub, it's pros and cons to each. I think GitHub is the more popular, in my opinion. GitLab will do probably everything that GitHub does as well. If you like GitLab or you have past experience at GitLab, use that. It doesn't really matter. Really, the goal here is just to show like steady commit history on GitHub, and or like Kaggle. Either of these three is going to be all about showing that steady commit. So you're making commits on the daily, ideally, or like on the every other day, or at least on the weekly, or like several days a week, and you're consistent with that. Final one here would be our Tableau. And Tableau here is just for analytics. So the Kaggle and Tableau will work really well together. And of course, Tableau is where we take that data and visualize it. You can create some beautiful visualizations. I've done some work on Tableau. How much I don't really consider myself a data analyst or a data scientist, but I do like data and I know how important data is. We use data at the job, and it's very important for making smart decisions, especially in this data-driven society that we currently find ourselves in, right? And so it doesn't really matter where you are in your career. I think everyone has to have a solid understanding of data and basic tools such as like Excel, some Python, perhaps R. What's the other, SQL, or some kind of a SQL databasing language. I think it's important for anyone that wants to be a STEM professional. Yeah, and even if you're not using these skills every day, you're not writing with PyTorch every day for your data analysis or MATLAB or Matplotlib. It's still good to know that, for one, that they exist, and like the basic foundations, so that you can have like a coffee table conversation about it and at least understand. And then if you're working at a company that's large enough, you at least have a couple data people on the team who are always on top of that data, making those visualizations to help companies make smart decisions, right? Yeah. And then a final one would be an online portfolio. This would be a site. This is especially important for my front-end developers, software engineers. You want to show that you can build, designers, something that's really beautiful, something that looks great. You want to show that the strong skill set of building a website. And we've hit on this in the past. If you're going to put yourself out there as like a JavaScript developer, or React developer, you want to be publishing a website of your own that's based on JavaScript or based on React or whatever framework that you prefer to be using, right? Okay, so yeah, you do that. If you have strong primary and one or two strong secondary pieces in your job suite, you're going to have a really strong suite. You have a LinkedIn profile that is up to date and relevant. It's going to get you attention. And these can be assets to your career that help push you forward faster than you would without them. In this day that we live in, we've got a lot of tools that helps automate processes. We use these in our companies. Hey, we can use them for ourselves in our daily lives as well. So use these tools. They usually tend to fall in that category that's important but not urgent, right? Which is the most important category if you want to make a big impact in this world or a big impact in your life. And it doesn't have to be that you're famous, right? That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you have to be Steve Jobs or Stephen Covey. You don't have to be like known, but if you want to push things forward in your life and you want to push your life forward, you've got to on the daily take care of those non-urgent but very important things to do. And so try to be very diligent about carving out a couple hours a day for those type of tasks. And do them, even if you're just doing it a couple hours a day, an hour and a half a day. If you're consistent, when you look back year over year, you'll see you make massive progress in your life. Okay, I've been JP Miller with Career Inclusive. Let me know what job suite pieces that you're using in your career and in your job search. What's worked well for you? What's worked well for you in your LinkedIn profile? What's been your winning resume? Do you use GitHub? Do you use GitLab? Do you use Kaggle? What do you like about these things? Do you use something that I didn't even cover? Maybe I'm not aware of it yet, and you use it and it's helped you get jobs and you want to share it. I would love to hear about that in the comments. So look me up, hit me up at careerinclusive.com. I'm there. Schedule an appointment to meet with me on my calendar. We'll set up a strategic call to talk about your career. And I would love to get to know you, what your career goals are. And we will see you tomorrow. Take well. That came out funny. That was a mix of take care and be well. And I'm just gonna roll with it. Take well. Take well, friends.